Hey, welcome to Space Chicken, the podcast that used to have an alternate life online, and then it stopped paying a subscription fee. Joining me today, for twice in like 3 weeks, is Scott. Say hi, Scott. Nope, did not. That didn't come. If you spoke, it didn't come through.
Howdy.
All right, I
There we go.
am not gonna edit that. Just gonna leave that in there, and we're gonna rock with it.
We're professionals.
So here's my question of the week for you, Scott. Are MMOs dead? Like, are they dead? Are they done? Is that a thing that we're gonna keep doing in 2018 and beyond? Because there's some MMOs that occasionally like I'll see and I'll get excited for. But it's like, am I going to do it? Am I going to commit to a MMO? Right? At this point, I mean, I've done a lot of them. They've evolved over time. The most recent one that I got involved with was Black Desert Online. I played it pretty hardcore for a month, and then I just stopped.
Well, I think there are a couple factors coming into this.
So with
I
the
think
new year,
that subscription-based MMOs are going the way of the dodo bird. I don't think that they're going to last, or new ones are going to come out, because I feel like it's too difficult of a model at this point. People expect the free-to-play system. I really expect WoW to go that way soon too. But I think it's tough asking people to invest a lifetime into a game, because an MMO does require a huge amounts of efforts. And I wonder if the younger breed of gamers is more enticed by quick games, such as I can't think of their names. I'm blanking.
Well, clearly you're not part of the younger generation.
Clearly I'm not. Golly, Dotas, those things.
MOBAs.
MOBAs. Dota is a MOBA.
The word you're looking for is MOBAs.
Also, something like Overwatch, things like this, quick plays. And I think that the idea of investing time is kind of an old thing, because the rate at which games are coming out and changing. I don't really see a future of a big market for them. I think there'll always be MMOs. I think the market's going to continue to shrink. I mean, do you consider Destiny an MMO?
Yes. Okay. So before we go on this, because you brought up Destiny, that's an interesting point, because Destiny has MMO qualities to it that's been incorporated into a looter shooter, and I feel like we've had this discussion before, but no one watches this channel, so it's always good to keep having it so the discussion stays at the top of the playlist. But let's talk about what makes an MMO, because I feel like we had this talk when we talked about MOBAs, like what makes a MOBA, and that term is gone bananas and ran on its own, because it used to be 3 lanes with minions and stuff, and now you have games like Battle Rights, which are MOBA, which are literally online battle arenas. It's literally an arena in which you do battle. And then some people were saying that these Overwatches and Paladins are actually versions of MOBAs. They're just first-person MOBAs, but without the minions. So much for where Battleborn had the minions in it and was that type of class-based, ability-based combat kind of things. So when we talk about that in MOBAs, we have to talk about the MMO. Like, is it just that a bunch of people can play together at the same time in the universe? Because a game like Destiny limits how many people can be in one zone at one time in one instance. But not in the same way in which like a WoW limits it. Like, there's still, I remember back in the day, you would go to Dwarf World, because I don't remember any of these. What was Dwarf World called?
Iron Forge?
Yes, and you would go to the Forge, and there'd be about 8 gajillion people there. Like, that was literally massive
like dancing and stuff, and
just taking up space. So what's an MMORPG? Like, what is that? Like, if you had to define, like, what are the characteristics that a game would have to have within it to be considered an MMORPG? And then from there, I think we can talk about, does Destiny 2 fall into the parameters?
All right. Well, let's stick to
No
the.
pressure, by the way.
I know, right? All right. So
What's
massively
up, guys?
multiplayer online, right? Those like the first part of it, right? So there has to be a lot of people. It can't be, and this is where I disagree with where Destiny seems like it just took some parts of an MMO, right? Because like the first, remember like in the beginning there was like World War II online. Remember those old ones? It was a long time ago. And those were the ones that got me into it, was that there's like thousands of people playing on one server, right? And that to me is massively multiplayer online because you're dealing with massive amounts of other people. So I think that an MMO, in my opinion, would have to be where you're engaging with, or you have the opportunity to engage with thousands of people. And I don't mean like where Destiny is, you could potentially engage with thousands of people over a year. This is something where, as you said with Ironforge, you can go in and the limitations on how many people you could interact with is basically like whoever wants to be in that area, right? And the RPG aspect of it, that could be, I mean, it has to be story based, right? Right, role playing. I think there would have to be, of course, there has to be missions, there has to be quests, there has to be direction for your character. But I also think that maybe it involves. I'm not a big Final Fantasy guy. Maybe it involves choice of direction where you can go and what you can do. I don't know. I'm kind of blanking here.
All right. So I got from what you said, I took away a bunch of goddamn people.
Bunch of people.
All right, bunch of goddamn people. Got to have some RPG elements
Right.
in it.
Right.
All right, you gotta have to be with people, right? Like it's not just that they're there, right? In an MMO, have to be with them. Like in order to accomplish things, right? In order to do things, you cannot do it alone. There has to be a part of the end game, right? And actually everything leading up to the end game, but the end game I feel like is what most of the things about, like that you have to be with people. Like you cannot achieve the end with alone, right? And then I think gear. Like I feel like gear is important, right? Because the thing about MMORPGs is that they don't end, right? I just said you can't get to the end alone, but end game content, right? You cannot achieve it, but they don't finish, right? There is no the end. There's the end of the dungeon, the end of the raid, the end of the mission, but the game doesn't end because for the most part, and the only exception that I have found to this is Elder Scrolls Online. The worlds tend to be persistent. So that if you can go through an entire area and save that area, if you go back to the area, it's not saved. It's still, if you go to a town that's in shambles and being haunted, and you do the quest line in which you banish all of the ghosts, if you go back there, the ghosts are still there, and you can just farm ghosts or kill Franken nuts.
Unless they do like the phasing like WoW does now. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Right. But now, again, the exception being that Elder Scrolls, this actually makes it difficult to play with other people. If someone goes through the zone and like actually purges the ghosts won't come back for that person. But the other people
can't help you.
Yeah, I can't help you. Like the thing you're attacking will not attack me. I'm awesome. I killed it already. So there's there's that part of it. So it's got to have no ending, right? There's no victory condition that ends the game, right? That I like, and to be an MMO, you have to need to Google the credits, right? I feel like that's a major thing, because if it finishes, then it's just a multiplayer game, right?
Well, it's kind of, well, yeah. I guess it has an ending per se, right? A final chapter, right before an expansion pack comes out, but you can literally replay that final chapter over and over again to get better stuff.
Yeah, but right. Here's the thing, though, to be clear. It's not just that you can play it over and over again. You can play it over and over again from the point in which you last played it. So anything that you achieved from last time, you can go back in. Because you can go into any game and play it over and over again at any end part. Like, what's important for the MMO is that you get to the ending and you can reset that last whatever it is and do it again.
You progress.
Yes. Okay. So I feel like we have our general MMO parameters. No real ending. Bunch of goddamn people.
Right. Gear.
Gear.
Progression.
Progression was better than RPG
huge.
elements. Progression.
And I would no, I guess
and cannot get the most out of the game by yourself.
Right. And like some kind of market or trade system is usually something that forces that involves interaction amongst. I guess it's.
I got what you're saying. Trade house or something where people can interact with each other, which is weird because Destiny doesn't have that.
Well, that's what I was trying to think of an MMO that doesn't have some kind of market or trade system, and I can't. Usually there's some kind of system.
Right. I mean, Black Desert Online is completely based on a market system. That entire game is just one big market.
I feel like to make an MMO, you have to have some kind of economics degree so that you can establish like an integral part of like this way, so people aren't cheating the system. Like you have to. It's crazy.
So all that stuff, like they've done the psychological studies of like why people get addicted to MMO, and it is that progression, like going back, getting stuff, the thing of the level up and everything.
Such a great feeling.
Else, it does. It feels so good. It releases my dopamines. I don't know, but again, I feel like the point you brought up earlier about needing like a faster game is true. So like when you talk about Destiny, right? And you brought that up, and it's very weird because Destiny is it's a really hated game, but which is weird because
played by so many people.
Yeah, I know. It's the oh man, God damn it, my brain broke between Nickelback and Creed. Like I wanted to say Nickelback and Creed at the same time. I'm like everyone hates those bands, and yet somehow
Nickel Creed.
And yet somehow they keep making music because people keep buying their albums. Like, come on. No one else rocked out to My Own Prison? Just me? Just this guy? Whatever. Anyway, I play Destiny 2, right? And I play Destiny 2 for one reason, and that is that Bungie made Halo, and Halo had tight first-person space shooter. And Destiny 2 is just a tight first-person space shooter. What a lot of MMO elements added to it, which originally alienated a lot of the first-person crowd because they weren't there for the MMO parts. And then they had the looter-shooter element, which brought the looter-shooter people into it. But looter-shooter is just gear. That's all that is. That's the gear grind, right, of an MMO. And while you play as strikes in a 3-man team and raids in a team, I forget how big, and the areas are generally limited as to how many people can be in it. It's a lot of MMORPG stuff to it. You level up yourself, and then you level your light, right? Which think about it in terms of like hit, and in a classic RPG, you need a certain light level in order to actually be able to do a recommended events in the world. It's a little skimpy on the endgame content, but it gets you to endgame pretty quick, as opposed to normal MMO where you'd have to get 50 levels. You only got to get 20 levels in Destiny, and then you're doing endgame content like that. I sat with Mike the other day because I level a character with him. We got to endgame in 8 hours.
That's fast.
8 hours we were level 20, ready to do raids and strikes. It was it's a banana thing, but it has that end game repetition. You just do the same thing over and over and over again in order to get things that are different colors. So greens and then purples and then orange. I don't know how to orange. They have yellow, right? And that's just the whole thing of it. So think about it like that. The grind is essentially an 8-hour grind. So to your point of it getting faster. That's fast. That's a fast trip to endgame.
You can literally look at the evolution of WoW and you can see exactly what happened to MMOs if you watch the evolution of WoW. When I started playing, it was patch 2 point something. Right? It was still very grindy. Like you still had to like grind beasts to get to the next level. Like all the quests were done. You couldn't go into the next area because you were getting owned. And I mean, I haven't played this last one, but my goodness, did leveling get so fast. Like, you didn't even have to do zones. You were leveling so fast. and there's all these leveling bonuses and this, that, and the other thing just to get to the first level. Or buy the game, get a level 100 character right off the bat, right? Like this was like if you looked at the progression of the constantly appeasing people, and as people changed, it was like, oh, I want to get there quicker. I mean, I know the game got longer and more in depth, so they wanted to catch people up. But I feel like since that, every other MMO I'm watching, it's just very quick. It's very quick.
So they have to give you a level 100 character because if you ever played WoW from beginning to end, which I did a long time ago, and then you're going to tell me 40 more levels on top of that? Get out of here. I don't
It's so quick, though. It's so ridiculously quick now.
But what you're saying about like not having to do zones to level actually killed a lot of RPGs for me. Before Rift went downhill, Rift was a lot of fun back in the old day. And then the first expansion came out. And the first expansion came out, you were leveling so fast that you didn't have to 100% a zone in order to be ready for the next area. And what happens was you were out leveling the quests and in turn out leveling the gear, which meant it was no longer efficient for you to finish the zone, which meant two things. One, besides the fact that Rift's story is based off of time travel, which creates a whole bunch of problems. But that aside, right? That aside, there is story, right? Or at least there was when I was playing, right? It wasn't the greatest story, but there was a story that you will not get. Because the minute that you qualified for the level of the next zone, the first intro mission to the next zone was available. You didn't have to finish the zone to get the next zone unlocked. You could be like, oh, okay, I am now level 20. I can just go to the 20 zone, even though there's like 15 more missions here. But why would I do those and spend hours only getting level 22 when I could get to level 22 in 30 minutes with bigger enemies? And that just became cost inefficient for it. And they patched it later where you can go back and like nerf yourself. So you can get like money and stuff, so that it's so you can farm lower level zones in order to get money. So you can help people. So you can help people in lower zones. It all got weird and wonky, but like it's stuff like that help kill the MMO. The need to give more, right? Because there is no ending, so you have to keep expanding. So now WoW lets you buy a level 100 character. How long has that game been out?
2002?
So 2002 to 2018, 16 years, essentially, because they've expanded the game so much, right? And I understand. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have expanded it. I don't want anyone to go, well, that's how business is to make money. Shut up for a second and listen to the point. Because we're not talking about making money. We're just talking about why we feel like MMOs generally are dying, right? In order to get someone new on board, to get someone else to play it, you have to go, don't worry about the last 16 years of game. Just worry about the last 3 months of game, because that's the last bit of game that we added on. The others, they're still there. You can do it if you want, but like, it's gonna be a wasteland of you not doing it, because now you can queue up for dungeons at max level and still do old dungeons, but with max level benefits and whatever. So all the dungeons became endgame, because I don't know if I say I don't know if you remember, but I know you remember back in the day, in order to do a dungeon you had to go to that meeting stone, and everyone had to touch that meeting stone outside of the dungeon, and then you
had to find other people first.
You should LFG, you should hit the LFG, like LFG whatever dungeon.
I want to make one correction. It was 2004 that
2004. Okay. All right, so like 14 years. 14 years.
Remark about that in the comments section.
Please correct us in the comments, so let us know you're watching.
or say anything.
Anything. I was going to make a lot of inappropriate jokes about what they could say about my penis, but I'm not going to. And eventually they changed that so you could just have Dungeon Finder, right? So you could literally just queue up for a dungeon and then go about your day, and we're in a dungeon now. And everyone was like, that was so, it's so convenient, but that took away from everything. Because when the Dungeon Finder came out, this is, wow, I know a lot about WoW. Anyway, when the Dungeon Finder came out, it allowed you to queue up with people in different servers, right? It was no longer server specific. Eventually it did. Eventually it did, right? So that means if I was on server Murloc King, right? Because this is the stuff I don't remember, specific names of places and things, right? If I was on the Murloc King server, right, and you were on the Knights of, fuckwads over here, we could then queue up in this instance, because I think everyone just switched to super servers at some point, of this instant and queue up into the dungeon. And yes, it's better because it's easier to find people to do dungeons. And yes, it was necessary. But why was it necessary? It was necessary because they killed zones. By expanding so much, all of the old zones became dead, so you couldn't LFG. You couldn't organically do the part of the MMO. And at this point, a game like WoW is just feeding people's addictions, just the WoW addicts. And I don't want to talk about it so darkly. People are addicted to WoW, so an expansion comes out, they reactivate their accounts, they go, they get off, and then they're like, all right, there's nothing else to do. They deactivate their accounts, like, call me in 6 months when I can give you $30 more for the next expansion. So that killed WoW, right? Because WoW isn't dead, but it's not alive either. WoW feels to me like a horde of zombies. The game itself feels incredibly archaic. I've said this in the past. I go in, I try to get to level 20 for free because I have fond memories of WoW. And I try to get to level 20 for free, and I can't get past level 5 before I go, this game is crap, burn it to the ground. But then I go and play a game like Black Desert, and Black Desert is so different. It's like actiony. You're like a samurai guy and like a witch, but even like your witch skill is not even like, oh, I'm channeling. It's like I slap you in the air and like wand in your face. It's like it's totally different. And there's like this whole economy based system and there's all this stuff now. And it is an Eastern RPG, and Eastern MMOs have a totally different value system as to what they're looking for. And all that stuff has left me at Destiny, bro. It has left me at Destiny, where I'm like, Destiny gives me it scratches my MMO itch. And I still want to play MMOs. And this is the weird part. I want to play an MMO. But I don't know. I've been rambling. I apologize.
I feel like when the idea we've been playing a long time. But the idea of, and this is why I said there's a difference in generations, right? Like, I feel the minute I start an MMO, even they look great. Like, I was looking at one where you actually age, and I think it's coming out 2018. You age and die within a certain time frame. Oh, and you pass it, and you can pass on traits and stuff to your kids or whatever. I can't remember the name of it.
I'll find the name. Keep talking.
And like the environment changes, right? You affect the environment. The weather comes in. If you're not taking care of houses, the houses fall apart. Awesome. All of it sounds awesome. But because we're so jaded from previous MMOs, like we know all that stuff sounds really good. But when we start playing it, exactly what's going to happen at endgame. Everything is going to be streamlined. Everything is going to be a right best in slot. And all the grinding it's going to take, and it rips all of that good feeling away when you're like, oh, this imaginary world. But then you start realizing no matter what they do, at the end of the day, you're going to have the same end game experience, basically.
So the game that you're talking about is called Chronicles of Valeria, right?
Yes, it is.
It's one of the games that I was looking at, and I thought I got like really hyped for, because I feel like it solves the problems that you're talking about, right? Except for that, like, the game has like a mechanic in it where generationally, like the next person you take inherits some of the traits. But that's one of those games where there's a system in place in order to make you like rule that world, right? And your character aging and dying is equivalent to a server reset. So that like the same person can't keep ruling that world. Now I didn't get details on dungeons and stuff, right? Because those group events are the things that get people playing. So, like, let's take Guild Wars 2, for example, right? Guild Wars 2, which, by the way, is still really good, right? Like, it's not bad, right? I have not played it in a while, but the last time I played, I'm like, man, this was really fun. Why did I stop playing this? And then I was like, oh, yeah, because I'm the only one I know who plays this. And then I stopped, again, because the second M in MMO is multiplayer. And you know me, I don't like playing with strangers online because and here's the thing, for everyone on the internet who I've ever played video games with, and you would never know, I assume you're all child molesters because it's the worst thing I could assume of you. Therefore, if I find you know what I'm saying, like if you associate with people like, oh, that guy's on my friends list on this imaginary thing, and I know him as Deathbringer 48. And it turns out that he's got like, Norwegian slaves in his basement or something. And you're like, and then they trace it back to you. I'm gonna go, I assumed he was a pedo. I'm sorry. Just to back myself up. Total tangent, but I think it's important to understand that people on the internet, even though it's your friends list, they're not your friends. That's just a public service announcement that I need to put up there. That's the PSA for No Right Answers. Do with that information what you will. And so Guild Wars 2 was really good, right? It was class based, and that game and Rift did amazing things to make the group events happen organically, right? So yes, there were like prearranged group events, but there would be like, oh my god, again, I don't remember names of things. The Balrog of the East has spawned, and it's gonna take 30 people to kill it, but it announces Balrog of the East, and 30 people converge on the point, and they just kill it. Now it takes a certain amount of coordination, but not an extreme amount of coordination. Well, let's say, you're doing a dungeon or more importantly, a raid, and let's say a WoW or even a Destiny, where it's like, all right, you need to have this equipped, you need to be casting these spells, you need to be timing it like this. It was a little bit like, hey, there's 50 of us, we're going to kill this thing, as opposed to, hey, this group coordinated attack, here's the plan, Leroy Jenkins. But there are things like that going on. But again, like a game like Chronicles of Valeria, where I get super, like, I am excited about that game, right? It's one of the games that I'm excited about that's coming out this year that has the MMO tag on it. But am I going to commit to it? Again, I'll go back to Elder Scrolls Online, which, for the record, great game. There's nothing wrong with that game right now. As it stands right now, there's nothing wrong with that game except for when they went away from subs. There's this weird stuff with your inventory. But that aside, it's a solid game, right? You play it. It's Elder Scrolls-y. It's MMO-y. There's class base. You can upgrade all the things that you want to upgrade. The gear grind is there. The PvP is there. The PvE is there. And I can't stay with it. Like, I can't stay with it. And if you ask me what's wrong with the game, I would tell you nothing. But I will tell you that when it comes to MMOs, that's how I've been lately. I get into it. I'll play hard for a month. And I'll just kind of fizzle out. And there's no reason. There's nothing that the game did to me that causes me to disengage. And I will always go back to them after a few months. But I get the same feeling from certain single player experiences. I'll get the same feeling from certain multiplayer experiences, right? I mean, I don't feel that way. Like there's few games that scratch my itch, like let's say a Smite, right? Because I'm part of that MOBA crowd that you're talking about. Like Smite and Paragon scratch a certain itch for me that other games don't. But there are a few games that I will play every day outside of like a Smite, for example. Meanwhile, MMOs are designed to be played every day and for you to stay with them because you're looking for that loot grind. And so I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to the genre because it used to be my favorite genre.
It was so funny was when I started playing MMOs, it was almost like, oh man, this is what I was looking for. Something, the idea that I wasn't sitting down and starting a new game, like if you do something with Xbox or something that was like Call of Duty, right? So like the idea that you just hop on, not so much the single player mode, but even the single player mode, you finish it, beat, you're done with it. Those days, I enjoyed those games. I enjoyed the Sonics of the past when I used to play those. But when I started playing it, I was like, oh man, so it's awesome because the character that I'm playing develops and grows and all that. And the idea in my head, I'm like structuring my day so that I can make sure I get on. It's just the reality after a certain amount of time. Like, man, I have enough crap to plan in my day, so I'm not gonna do that. That's what ended up happening. But no, it was like a light switch, and so I was like, I don't understand. I will never play another game because games like WoW were just I always grew. I was always growing, right? Everything was progress. And then when you start to realize that plateau of what really is, when you first start playing MMOs, is the greatest thing in the world. You live in that world, like that first freaking animal you kill is like amazing to you, and you like the first mission is like the hardest mission in the world, and this world is so big. But once you know the world, all of a sudden it's just like, I remember a while they were talking about the zeppelins that bring you places. I didn't even see them. I had no idea where they were. I was like, this is crazy. There's a place where there's zeppelins that take you someplace. And then you kind of get older and in both life and in your character in the world. And once you've seen everything, you're like, oh man, it's not as, the charm has been taken away.
So, is that what it is? Like, is it that there is no new MMO mechanic for us? Right? Is this an us thing?
I don't. It's not them. It's us.
Right. Well, but so when I say us, you have to remember. So you talk about the MOBAs, and the sentence I was going to say, and this generation of gamers. I was going to say that, and I stopped myself from saying it. But this generation of gamers, right? As you pointed out earlier, right? Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take your point, I'm going to steal it.
Okay.
And I'm going to make it my own, right?
You're going to repackage it.
I am. It's going to be now a Danny idea. The MOBA crowd, right? This generation of gamers grew up with MOBAs. We grew up with MMOs, right? Right? So there's nothing new in an MMO that we haven't seen, right? Which is why Chronicles of Valeria is intriguing to us, because now we have a character that as we progress, it will die of natural causes. It will just die by itself, right? And it's like, oh wow, so we're gonna reset and we get to do it again, which is important. Because it is true, when you get to endgame and you've grinded all you can grind and there's nothing else to do, you're like, I'm done. Whereas a MOBA, right, what a MOBA does is it takes that progression grind and makes it every game, right? Because every time you enter a game in a MOBA, you are level 1. I was going to say level 0, but you're not, level 1, right? And you level to whatever the level cap is in that particular game, and in doing so, you'll earn experience, you'll earn gold, and with it, you'll be able to unlock things that will make you better while you're playing, and every time you enter a new game, you reset, and you're back to level 1 again. Right, it's good, right? I couldn't do that again if you asked me to. No. So it goes over and over and over again. And as MMO people, that's what we're looking for, right? To do it again. It's why you have more than one character. I mean, Destiny 2 is not that old. It's only had its first expansion pack. It came out, I want to say, September, October time frame. And I've made a second character. I know people who already have 3 max characters over 300 light. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's that thing where you want to do it over and over again, but you want to get a certain amount of satisfaction from doing it. And in an MMO in which you never die, it seems pretty good. I mean, Chronicles of Valeria is not the only one I'm interested in, and this is again there's Ashes of Creation, which looks really cool. There's Ascent, Infinite Realm. There's Crowfall.
All right, so I had a thought. I'm just thinking about now when you're talking about it, right? Mm-hmm. You and I, people our age, in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
Mid 30s.
Let's not talk about how old we are.
Mid 30s.
I'm not mid yet.
Okay, so we grew up with games. Like we started like after Pong, let's just say, right?
So I would consider our generation the first real generation of gamers.
So like right? Nintendo.
Right? Yeah. I'm not going to take it. So there's an era before us, but that era before us, when they went into adulthood, did not keep gaming.
Right.
And those that did face social stigma. We are the first generation that grew up with games, can continue to game, and not face a social stigma. Continue, sir.
I feel like our age, right,
mm-hmm.
plus 10 years, people in their 40s, maybe 50s, right? Like in that time frame, right? We grew up with, we started with Mario, right? Mm-hmm. We moved on to our Super Nintendo or Sega, depending on which way you want to go, right? Mm-hmm. And I started thinking about it, and I feel like MMOs were the natural progression of that, right? Because we eventually evolved to like, we played these characters, we love these. You played Mario Brothers so much, or you played Sonic so much, and you're just like, I want to see more of that character. And MMOs were like the answer to that. Right? So like you got to live that character. And that was like the fulfillment of us playing. It's just in my brain here. I feel like the new generation didn't have any of that lead up, right? They've seen MMOs after they've already been developed and aged, right? So
Yes.
they're just kind of looking at it like a all finished products, right? So to them, it's kind of they don't get it. I don't think they get it, right? So like you said, where they enjoy their instant gratification uh, games, I feel they'll never truly understand, and that's why we cling to like MMOs. I feel like the older population clings to them because of the character development, and I don't feel that new kids care as much. I'm not saying that there's some that do. I feel that the more it's more centered around the esports scene, the quick pacing and everything. But it's just kind of crazy. It hit me when you were saying that, like our natural progression to that type of game. And if I just came into the world now, like what's the point? You know, all those games would just seem archaic and oh man, I have to put all this time into a game. No, I was like, no, we put hours into Legend of Zelda just to find out the damn wall we could have walked through. We didn't know we could walk through the wall. You know, I spent hours trying to figure that crap out. So I don't know. It's just a thought.
So
I feel old.
I was about to say, I think it's official. MMOs are dead. MOBAs are the future. But by the way, huge supporter of esports. I've come around on it. I've changed my position over time. I'm a bigger supporter of esports, and you can't have an MMO esport, right? So they all have to be in this kind of battle arena style, and because of that, it's gonna manifest into things. But I do think there's a place for MMOs, right, in the gaming scene. I do want a good MMO. I want good RPGs. And I think that's the bigger deal for me, right? So over time, right, the RPG genre has evolved thanks to Bethesda and BioWare, even though BioWare might be in a little bit of trouble with their relationship with EA. We'll see how Anthem turns out, in the last quarter of this year, where we had, games that were RPGs that slowly turned into games that had RPG elements, or games that were pretending to be RPGs, right? I mean, you can play a game like Fallout 4, which is a great game. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's fun, right? I wouldn't call it a flawless game, but I would call it a game with very little flaws. And at the same time, where you're leveling up, what really matters? Right? What really matters when you're leveling up, unless you want to do some max min nonsense in which you're going to melee the whole game naked. Right? Unless you want to do something like that, like what does your leveling up really do except for make life slightly more convenient? And I could honestly, and I wouldn't be the only one in the world making Mass Effect. There we go. Almost forgot the name. In the last one of Mass Effect, a lot of people complained about how few RPG elements were in a game that touted itself as an RPG. In a 3-game RPG span, it's a little harder with gunplay, but, over time, BioWare was known as a franchise through having the Star Wars license for a short time with Knights of the Old Republic. They could make a gunplay style game have RPG elements in it. And eventually you end up with where we are now, having nothing to do with either of the two companies that you spoke about, but Destiny and Bungie, in which there's an RPG-ish first-person looter shooter, in which you can, you get points and you put them in things, but it's like, meh. Outside of the raids, how much does what grenade I use really matter? Right? Like, how much outside of the raids does it matter which is my special, whether it's going zzz, electricity or shooting fireballs from my sword matter, right? And it becomes these things where we can level up so we feel like we're doing something, but we're not actually changing the game on a greater scale outside of certain engagements within a game. So it's just something. And then, of course, you go to the other end of the spectrum when it comes to RPGs, which is Dark Souls, which is relentlessly difficult. And every single skill point you put into it matters because it will either let you wield a weapon or give you the stamina in order to take more than 3 swings with a sword before getting your face kicked in. by, I don't know, a sad peasant.
Your,
I have
your obsession with Dark Souls.
Dark Souls. It's like it really is my abusive relationship, but that's something for a totally different day. Was that the conclusion? Did I just do the conclusion? Did I?
I felt like that was like the ending.
I feel like that was it. Right?
I wish we would end our episodes as abruptly as we start them.
And this is the end of Space Chicken. Click videos, subscribe buttons, and other stuff, and tell people about us because honestly, we are the smartest podcast in gaming.
Smartest.
Like we are so meta that we're meta. Think about it. Space Chicken out. Oh.
It's like good and evil. We're like day and night.
Oh.
It's like my kids painted on my wall when there's a blackboard here for them to actually draw on. Put up purposely for them to draw on the walls, but they drew over here. So what are we going to do